best we can do. Let's all stand up, please. For me, this is as sacred as the Jana Gana Mana. My request to all of you to please stand up. Let's do this well. My friends behind also need to stand up. Yes. So, namaste. Right? Thank you. Please sit down. I start every talk, every workshop, wherever in the world I go with namaste because it's a very sacred word for me. And I think if India and people in India had practiced the right traditions rather than the terrible traditions, stupid superstitions and damn dogmas as I call them and the blind beliefs, then we would have been a better nation. Namaste actually teaches us great life lessons. It teaches us lessons of humility, gratitude, equality, and many other lessons. But I won't get into Namaste today because I was told to speak on mental health. And I'm going to speak on mental health. May we have the slides up, please? All right? So my topic today is to speak on mental health, specifically mental health for students. But before that, let me ask you a few questions. Did all of you go to school and college? If you did, please stand up again. If all of you have gone to school and college, please stand up. Friends at the back, you're in school or not? All right? Let's do this well. Some energy, friends. It's early in the evening. You didn't go to school and college? Okay, so you have to stand up. Okay, fine. If you can't stand up, then keep sitting, but some energy is required. Now, please keep standing. I'm going to ask you a simple question. All of you went to school and college. Did you study or did you learn? Honestly, cross your heart. Did you study or did you learn? Do most people go to school and college and do they study or do they learn? Honest answer. Is there a difference or is it just an interchange of words? Is there a difference between studying and learning? Yes or no? Yes. So please sit down. The problem with most people in the world is that they go to school and college and they study. They do not learn. Learning is intrinsic, is internal. Studying is external pressure. You're studying because you need to prove to the family that you got a good percentage, you got a great degree, and that's what education unfortunately has got reduced to. And a warm welcome to all of you. Namaste and thank you for having me over. That's what is happening in the mental health space. 81% of school students are suffering from anxiety. Any idea why students in India are the biggest victims of mental health? Who is responsible? My young friends, if you want to answer, who is responsible for students being the biggest victims of mental health? No one? Sorry? Pressure from whom? Sorry? School. So the number one reason, parents. Parents. The number two reason, regressive education systems. And the number three reasons, all the grown-ups that you encounter in your life. All the grown-ups who ask you, what is your plan? The question doesn't start in the teens anymore. It starts when you're 7 years old. What is your plan? Have you started white hair junior coding? Let them enjoy their childhood, God damn it. So that's the pressure that is building up. And then the entire concept of success. Success is all about going to a big school, good college, university, probably the Ivy League or the IIM or the IIT. A lot of parents who have not even conceived their children yet are already dreaming of IIT for their children. Because in India, we are not a rat race anymore. We are a race of 1.4 billion people fighting to be on top of the pecking order. And who's doing that to us? The grown-ups. Because they're teaching us all the wrong things, because they've learned all the wrong things all through their life. So that's my humble submission to you, to all of you. Second is the education systems. There's a internet influencer whose name is Gary Vee, and he says schools and colleges are redundant. I don't agree. Schools and colleges are not redundant. But the education methodology is, the way we teach is redundant. Because schools and colleges are the temples of wisdom. But rather than teaching them how to learn, we are teaching them just to study and get a percentage. Can you imagine someone getting 100% in literature or philosophy? That's happening in our country today. Students are downloading apps or buying apps like Byju's. Jerry uncle, I have increased my percentage from 65% to 85%, but Jerry uncle, I still don't understand the principles of engineering. Good, wait till you join Google. Right? So somehow we are corrupting our young students, corrupting our children, corrupting our youth to think percentage is everything, without realizing that percentage and a fancy degree, no matter from which institution, is futile and bunkum if you don't do something with yourself. And I'll tell you more about what you need to do with yourself. Because the entire concept of success is salary, job title, a great lifestyle, and a life of luxury. Another big wrong which parents are doing to their children. They are preparing children for a great lifestyle and a life of luxury, but not preparing them for adversity. And that is why many a student are breaking down today. So let me start by telling you a story of a banker who has been my client and also my coachee. I've been coaching him for almost 15 years in different organizations. I won't name him because if I name him, you'll know who he is. He's now the managing director of an investment banking firm. It's a global investment banking firm. And around 2017, I get a call from him. I was in Bangalore and he said, Jerry, I need you to counsel my 16-year-old son. And the first thought that went through my mind is, does he have a drug problem? Does he have a depression problem? I didn't ask him. I said, what is the problem? And he said, you'll have to come down to Bombay. I'll pay you your fees. I'll pay you your airfare, hotel, everything. You need to come and spend some time. I said, but tell me what is the problem? He wouldn't tell. So I said, you don't need to pay me anything. I know your son. He's like my son too. So I'm coming down to Bombay any which way on Monday. So I'll come a day earlier. You can take me out for dinner and tell me what the problem is. We meet at the Taj Land's End, which is in a place called Bandra in Bombay. I went there straight from the airport. We are having dinner. Capitalist that he is, he orders his first single malt. Me, being a man of the masses, I order my first beer. He takes a single malt and discusses all global issues, world problems, what Trump is doing, what Modi is not doing. And we spend an hour like that. And after an hour, I tell him, we were to discuss something about your son. That was the burning issue. We've discussed all the world problems, almost solved burning global issues, but let's get to the main issue. So what is the problem? So he said, okay, let me order another malt. He orders another malt. I order another beer. And then finally, after around 90 minutes of chit-chat, he gets to the main issue. It took him 90 minutes to muster the courage to get to the main issue. And he said, Jerry, I need you to counsel my son. Stupid idiot, he wants to become a bawarchi. Khansama banega. Chef banega. And I looked at him and I think I had a smile on my face. And I said, that's the problem? And he said, yes. I said, you could have told me over the phone, man. For 2 days, I've been anxious that does he have a drug problem, depression problem? And he said, what are you smiling about? I said, no, I'm relieved that that's the only problem. And I said, now I'm trying to figure out who needs the counseling. Your son or you? You need the counseling, my friend, not your son. In India, we don't have dignity of labor, so we are still looking down on a chef's profession. We are still looking at them as a bawarchi. So I had to really burst this guy's bubble. So I said, in the next few minutes, I'm going to completely demolish you. So be ready. I said, the chef at the Taj Land's End has served us our starters. He's come and met us. We met him. I said, have you gone into the kitchen even once to check what is the chef doing? He said, no. I said, why? Because we trust the chef. So here's my first insight for you. I trust chefs, not bankers. He said, are you serious? I said, of course I'm serious. Half the problems are in the world are because of politicians, the remaining half are because of bankers. And maybe the bankers are the bigger culprits than the politicians. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, haven't you heard of the subprime crisis, man? Haven't you heard of all the frauds? Haven't you heard of Madoff? Haven't you heard of all the bankers who are doing frauds and scams all over the world? I trust chefs, not bankers. My second question, I said, have you heard of Gordon Ramsay? And he said, that's celebrity. I said, talk with respect and some dignity for people. Just because you're the MD of a global investment banking firm doesn't make him just some celebrity. I said, he's not just a celebrity. He's a chef, bloody bawarchi, by training. And he's a food entrepreneur. I said, do you know what his net worth is as we speak today? And he said, I have no clue. I said, yeah, that's because you probably think your cat's whiskers because you make what, 15, 16, 20 crores a year? I said, well, hold on. As we speak today, Gordon Ramsay's net worth is 600 million US dollars. 4,000 crores Indian rupees. Now here's the insight for you. He can hire you as his bloody accountant, this bloody Bawarchi. I said, but he won't, because Gordon Ramsay is a fun guy. You're a grumpy guy. I said, okay, have you heard of Sanjeev Kapoor? And he said, yes, sir, Khana Khazana guy. Is he also worth 4,000 crores? I said, no, he's not. He's worth around 1,000 crores. But guess what? Even he can hire you as his accountant. And he might, because he's a grumpy guy like you. And we both started laughing. And I said, you know what? The problem with you is, just because you're a banker and your eldest son has studied in an Ivy League college and has joined a bank in New York, you want your youngest son also to become a banker. Let him do what he wants to do. He'll find his way. And I see him launching a huge chain of food stores in the future, and you can be his accountant. And we had a hearty laugh. So let's not put people in a box. People will find their way. That's what parents are doing. And I think we've defined success by thinking success is all about fame, glory, name, likes on social media. It's disgusting to see what people do on social media nowadays. Youngsters included on Instagram. There's something called Reels. Have you seen Reels? And people are doing something called Pushpa dance. I don't even consider it to be a dance. And they put it up on Reels only because they want some likes. And it actually all boils down to the lack of self-esteem. The biggest deficit in our world today is self-esteem. So don't define your success just by name, fame, glory, fortune, or some power. That is not success. Success is the positive contributions that you create for society and the value that you create for the world. If you are not doing that, you are not successful. So they have taught you success in the wrong way, right? I started working with children, teachers and parents because I think and feel and know it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I do corporate trainings, I coach leaders in organizations and companies around the world, and I can tell you, this quote by Frederick Douglass holds true. It is truly easier to build stronger children than to repair broken men. But unfortunately, what broken men and women are doing are making children corrupt, and they are corrupting them in the future. Imagine parents who fix certificates and make their children into OBCs or economically weaker section certificates, or make them into NRI quota to get admission. What have you done to your child? You have corrupted your child already. And the simplest way to destroy a nation is to corrupt the youth and the children. And that's what we're doing. I fear what the next generation will turn out to be. I fear going to doctors. Has this doctor really learned properly? Because he's probably been fixing the quota. That's what is happening, my dear friend, in schools and colleges, because the entire concept of an education is a brand and bragging rights. My child goes here. Is she learning anything? Is he learning anything? Now here's a big insight for you. The most effective IAS, IPS, IFS officers, and don't say are there any effective guys, the most effective IAS, IPS, IFS officers are mostly from the back of beyond, from places in Bihar and UP, or maybe Odisha. They have not gone to Welham. They have gone to some school which you may not even have heard of, in some village which you don't even know of. And they are shining. So what is this big brand education all about? Why have we reduced education to a brand and bragging rights? And why are we doing that to our children? I think it's time to change the narrative. And I created a concept called the E3 entrapment. I told you the first story. The first entrapment, the first entrapment in the E3 entrapment is education. Your education does not open the box for you. Your education is a textbook. It puts you in a box. Our eldest son, Zorawar, prepared for the past 2 years because he wants to become a lawyer. Hopefully a human rights lawyer and not just a corporate lawyer. I say that loud. I've been grooming him for that. And because he may not make the cut in the National Institute of Repute and Regard called the National Law University, whether Bangalore or Hyderabad, because of reservations, etc., I felt we should prepare him. So I've been preparing him that the college does not define you. The college does not define you. You define the college. And I should keep telling him stories. I write books. I tell stories of real heroes. In my first book, it's called Karma Kari, there's the story of a man called George Puliktail. George Puliktail was a father. He's from the Christian faith. And like me, he lost his faith. So he gives up the church and decides that helping hands are better than praying lips. And he goes and studies the law in a back of beyond college in a place called Kerala. And then this man who studies the law in depth, not a big brand college, mind you, goes back into his village in Kerala, in a place called Thrissur, and teaches every villager the law. The villagers can talk to you about human rights. The villagers can talk to you about land rights. And then now the villagers are going into other villages and teaching other villagers the law. And in a country where Supreme Court lawyers and reputed or rather popular, famous lawyers who come on the magazine of Business Week or Fortune, and we know how that paid news racket works, right? Where they will tell you that you cannot do anything with the Indian judiciary till you grease their palms. George Puliktail and his team of paralegals have fought rogue politicians, have fought big businesses, and won the cases without paying a single naya paisa bribe in this country called India. It is possible. So I told my son, do something like George Puliktail. That is the day I will salute you and say that I really look up to you now. This is a true story. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a fable. George Puliktail, including the Coca-Cola case, where they took Coca-Cola to court for stealing groundwater and brought Coca-Cola to their knees. This is a David versus Goliath story. So don't let your education trap you, right? The education puts you in a book and puts you in a box. We need to teach you how to open the box. The second entrapment is experience entrapment. You are not just the product of your own experiences. You are the product of all the experiences of the grown-ups, including your teachers, including your parents, including your uncles, aunties, and God knows who. All those parents who passed on their beliefs, their limitations on to you. Don't let them limit you. You have unlimited potential. Unleash it. Write your own story. Don't let them write your story. Don't let them write your story. So create your own experience. Don't be a victim of other people's experiences. For example, I come from a place in Goa where I was actually given to believe in my growing up years that I am from so-called upper caste family. And I was like, seriously? Mom, uncles, did you guys really go to school? How can you even think that you're upper caste and there's something called a lower caste? That's not education. It's defeating. It's cheating. It's regressive education. And the third entrapment, entitlement. I am entitled. You know, I'm happy to tell you that I started the entire movement of Swachh Bharat by taking students out right from 2003 to clean the streets of India. And in 2011, a dear friend, who I now call my dear friend and foe, Manohar Parikar, joined us in Goa to clean the streets of Panjim. Because Indian tourists who come to Goa and drive their fancy Mercedes cars and BMWs, junk bottles, empty bottles and scrap material from their cars onto the roads of Goa. True story, and these are educated guys, so-called educated guys, right? So we started cleaning the streets. And I have been doing this in schools and colleges because I do a course called Ethical Leadership in B schools. And there's a premier college called ISB in Hyderabad. And when I sign up with a college, I charge them a lower fee, a much discounted fee than what I charge corporates. And mandatory for all the teachers, dean, associate dean, admin staff to join me to clean the streets around the school or college. Not mandatory for the students, because I had to inspire them on day one to join me on day two to clean the streets. And it's absolutely voluntary. A student came up to me at the end of day one and said to me, Jerry, I won't be joining you to clean the streets tomorrow. I said, no problem, no problem. There are no certificates, there are no brownie points. And the next day I met him again, and when we were getting ready to clean the streets, he was standing close by. So I said, tell me, you said you won't clean the streets yesterday, and now you're standing here while you'll watch all of us clean the streets. Around 70% of students get inspired and join. And he says, I said, tell me, what is the reason that you won't join us? And he said, Jerry, you know what? I'm an intellectual. I'm meant for better things. I said, seriously? Okay, good. We are your slaves. We'll clean the streets, And then, I have this kida of instigating people and trying to improve their thought process. And I said to him, you're an intellectual, but can you see Dean Rao? Can you see Assistant Dean Ragnekar? Can you see all your professors who teach you? Some of them must be teaching you. And can you see all your admin staff? In the next 5 minutes, they have brooms, they have garbage bags in their hands. They're going to join me to clean the streets. So here's my insight for you. You are an intellectual, but you're learning in this institute from idiots who are going to clean the street. It took half an hour for this intellectual's bulb to go on, for him to realize that I was poking fun at him, that I was being sarcastic. And after half an hour, he comes to me and says, I'll join you to clean the street. I said, yeah, join. It's your home. There's no shame in cleaning the streets. There's shame in doing jugaad. There's shame in fixing. There's shame in doing corrupt deals. And that's what you're being taught in this education system today. How to do business not in the right way. Right? So we have a big problem on our hands. I call it a time bomb, and it is ticking. Right? Now, I was told to talk about mental health, and in a lot of places, mental health and emotional health as concepts are used interchangeably, and many people think it's the same. It's not the same, right? Mental health, emotionally healthy people is all about emotional agility. It's about self-awareness, which is missing for a lot of people today, right? And what people don't realize is that it is not your talent, your competence, your percentage, your degree, or your performance at school that is going to take you places and beyond. What is going to take you places and beyond is your character. And unfortunately, that's not being taught at home or in most educational institutions. So with that, we did a small experiment during the lockdown. We took a song called Ke Sera Sera and we tweaked the entire song because we were trying to send a strong message to parents, teachers, education institutions. So I'll request my friend to play the song, please, to play the video.
It's like a lot of people keep asking us, why did you change the song? It's such a beautiful song. Well, it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful melody. I think right from my teenage days, I've never agreed with the song because I find the song very analogous to what is happening in schools, what is being taught in schools and in homes, it's just teaching us to be career mules and consumers, right? And I think it's the lyrics actually kind of tell you exactly where society is headed, because it's futile, frivolous, and fatalistic, like I say. Futile because most of our education systems teach us by rote memory, teach us by rote studying, right? They don't teach us to learn. They're not teaching us essential skills like creative thinking, innovation, right, emotional intelligence, empathy, learning to learn, which are the most essential skills of the future. Resilience, and so on, right? Growth mindset, right? How champions need to compete with themselves and not with others. And that's why I find the education system to be futile, at least the teaching methodology, right? Then frivolous because how does it matter whether you're handsome, rich, or pretty? What about being good human beings? What about being better citizens? Time and again, we curse the country for being dirty, corrupt. Hey, it's dirty and corrupt because of us. The world is the way it is because of us. So let's own our individual social responsibility and become better human beings, better citizens, right? And and fulfill our responsibilities as human beings and citizens. Which means that are you creating an earth which is better than what you were born into? Because not because it's altruistic, selfless, or charitable, but because your future generations will also live in the same world. So it's actually selfish. So be selfish and start doing something to preserve the earth, failing which will make the earth worse than what it is today. Right? And fatalistic because this entire concept, which religions and families teach us, that God has a plan for you. Who is God to have a plan for me? Nothing is preordained or predestined. right? We make our own plans, we create our own paths, we are the captains of our future, we are the masters of our destiny. So I think we need to kind of change the narrative and change the communication, and move children from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. That's the basic intent of the song, and I think it's come out well, because small tweaks that we did in the song is now kind of conveying and communicating that essence.
When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. A good human you should be. Responsibility. What you choose will be.
When I grew up, there rose the lions, my sweetheart, what lies ahead? We have windows, day after here's what my sweetheart said.
What we choose will be. Responsibility. Hey, Sarah, what we choose will be. Hey, Sarah,
So what we choose will be, because there's no God who's going to save the earth. There are no saints or some Mahatma coming to save the earth. You all in this room are the Mahatmas. And if we are not doing something to preserve nature and save the earth is going to get more broken. It's already very broken. It's already very broken. And unfortunately, the grown-ups are not doing much about it. 30 years ago, in 1992, a young girl called Severin Suzuki spoke to the so-called world leaders in the UN, and mind my words, I'm saying so-called world leaders, because they are politicians, not leaders. Because leaders and statesmen think of future generations, not just the next election. Right? But so-called world leaders were told by a girl called Severin Suzuki, who was 12 years old and traveled from Vancouver to Brazil. And she said to them, if you don't know how to fix the world, don't break it anymore, because this world does not belong to you, it belongs to us, the future generations. 30 years later, the world is more broken. Politicians are living in denial. They don't even want to accept that there's a huge crisis awaiting us called climate change. So we really need to kind of rethink this and figure out what is it that we choose to do. Because are we just teaching our children to be career mules who climb the corporate ladder? Conspicuous consumers and confused souls. That's what we're teaching our children to do. We're not teaching them to be caring citizens. We're not teaching them to be conscious human beings. We're not teaching them to be change champions. And therein lies the fault of education at home and in most education systems. Now, these are the most essential skills of the future. The first is self-esteem. There's a self-esteem deficit. And it shows because you'll see a lot of people love taking selfies with some crooked, corrupt celebrity and putting it up on Facebook. Imagine you meet Vijay Mallya at the airport, you take a picture and you say, I was with Vijay Mallya. Fraud hai. Why would you put a picture like that on Facebook? What are you telling the world? Self-esteem is all about self-awareness, self-management, self-respect and self-love. Which means it's validation from within. It's not validation from outside. You don't need the likes on Instagram and Facebook. Be validated. You don't need to put up on your profile, I'm a TEDx speaker and an author, and self-publish your book with your parents' money. That's not publishing. Second, growth mindset, which basically means I do not compete with others. I do not benchmark others. I benchmark myself. Champions and leaders do not compete with others. The third is empathy. The fourth is emotional intelligence, learning to learn because most of us study, and the science of resilience which keeps us strong in our path. And of course, character-rooted life lessons. I'll take 1 minute more and I'll pack up. That's what growth mindset is all about. Power of mindset and belief. This is your emotional intelligence matrix, which is about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness and relationship management. And only jobs that require emotional intelligence will be relevant in the future. So here's another big insight for you. Future unready parents are preparing children for the future because they don't know that the skills that they're being taught today won't be relevant in the future. Many professions will be redundant, right? And there are tips on how to, and I'll share this PowerPoint with you. I created this for you. We've created an entire learning process about 5 intelligences, vulnerability and 21 powers, and how happiness is within you and not in the next big car or in the next big house that you buy or the next big job position that you get, right? This is what we tell in our stories, including Kid Power, which is about kids from very, very underserved communities who are giving back in a huge way to the country and the world, right? And the greatest peril of humankind today is not war, not conflict, it's human apathy. And that's why empathy is again the most essential skill of the future, right? And that's how to measure success now. It's not about your house and cars and what you own and living a life of luxury. It's about how you define yourself, how you create your path, and how you create a life of happiness. Not a life of luxury, but a life of happiness. Thank you so much.